Joining me now, former Donald Trump campaign manager and current OAN political commentator Corey Lewandowski. Corey, good to see you.
Hey Liz, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks for asking. Corey, let me just get right to the point here. You heard FBI Director James Comey yesterday. He said he and the Department of Justice have no information to support the allegations President Trump made in those tweets. What was President Trump talking about then? Was he wrong?
I think what the president was talking about, and we clearly know this to be true, is that this government, through either the NSA or some other agency, is listening to U.S. citizens on domestic soil. And the reason we know that is because we know that General Flynn was picked up on a U.S. intercept by having a conversation with the with the ambassador to Russia. Now, the issue with this becomes not just the interception, because it would be assumed that the Russian ambassador would be under surveillance, but the more important issue is how did that information and what was said between those individuals actually get out to the American public? And I think the real issue that the president has talked about is what other individuals are being listened to. Was it General Flynn with the Russian ambassador inside Trump Tower? Was it other place where these conversations took place? But more importantly than that, how did the information, which is classified in nature, get out to the general public, and why has no one been prosecuted for that leak of classified information?
Right, I don't disagree with that. I think one of the big issues here is it's a crime to leak classified information. General Flynn's name was unmasked and leaked to the public, which it should not have been, but that's not at all what President Trump's tweet said. He talked about people being inappropriately surveilled at Trump Tower. He called it McCarthyism. I mean, if he had a problem with the information being leaked, that's what he would have tweeted. What he talked about was inappropriate surveillance to begin with. And if, like you said, I think we all expect the Russian ambassador to be under some sort of wiretap here. That's not an illegitimate use of our surveillance.
No, that's right. But I think what the president was referring to again was, where was Mike Flynn when that conversation took place? Was Mike Flynn in Trump Tower when he had a conversation with the Russian ambassador? Did others have conversations with the Russian ambassadors from Trump Tower? We know that a number of people met with the Russian ambassador from both the Clinton campaign and the Trump campaign ultimately. Were all of those conversations recorded? If they were they done against U.S. citizens on U.S. soil? And if so, because the Russian ambassador is under surveillance, were any of those other conversations leaked? And that's really the issue. And I think what the president referred to specifically was there a, quote, tap of Trump Tower by the individuals, domestic U.S. citizens on U.S. soil, regardless of who they were talking to. And if they were talking to the Russian ambassador, it would be assumed that those individuals would be picked up on a wiretap.
Right, and I believe that's what they call incidental collection, and it's not necessarily a violation of the law. The violation of the law would be unmasking him inappropriately, unmasking General Flynn inappropriately, and then releasing that to the press. That's the issue. In your opinion, Corey, should President Trump come out and clarify what he meant? Should he say that he made a mistake in his tweet, in the phrasing of his tweet, and say the real problem here is the unmasking? The real problem here is that someone's leaking classified information, and that could put our nation in danger?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, and I think the president should say that absolutely. And the president should push the Justice Department and the FBI to find out who the individual or individuals were that leaked this information. Look, Mike Flynn clearly had a conversation with the Russian ambassador, which was picked up on a U.S. intercept, which is not illegal. But the issue that it was leaked to the American public and that everyone now knows about what that conversation was is illegal. And the president should clarify and make sure that he is telling his Justice Department and the FBI that anybody who is leaking classified information should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. I think the president should be very forceful on this point.
Right, and I do agree. I think it's time to put it to rest. I mean, like I said in the introduction, the president is doubling down on this, and that's just going to continue the narrative. If he has no substantiation for his claims, he should clarify and put it to bed so that we can move on here. Corey, something else interesting that came to light in the hearing yesterday, the James Comey hearing yesterday, was that James Comey said that he confirmed that there is an active investigation into the Trump campaign, Trump operatives. He didn't clarify whether it was people within the campaign or within the administration apparatus or President Trump himself, but I suppose it would be indirectly Trump himself, whether there were any inappropriate connections to Russia in regards to Russian meddling here. People were acting pretty startled about it on both sides of the aisle. I personally would have been more startled if there weren't an investigation ongoing. 8 months so far. We haven't heard anything. Who exactly is under investigation here? I mean, have you been investigated by the FBI?
Nobody from the FBI has ever contacted me, regardless of my position on the campaign. I can tell you this: I'm a guy from Lowell, Massachusetts, who probably has never even had Russian dressing in his life. So I have no concern about any communication I might have had with the Russians or any Russian agent, because I've never had any whatsoever, and there's no question about that. But if you look at the individuals who the public is reporting have been investigated. It looks like Roger Stone, who was an advisor to the Trump campaign until August of 2015 when I summarily fired him. Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, individuals who have long-standing and deep ties to Russia through their previous work experience. There are potentially others there. And then you have a number of people who've been mentioned that are on the periphery of the campaign that had no formal role in the campaign. Maybe they were volunteers or decided to offer some advice and counsel to the campaign without a formal role in the campaign. Some of those names have been mentioned. But look, here's the important thing. Anybody, and I mean anybody, who had contact with the Russian government that broke the laws, that tried to influence, if they tried to do that, the outcome of the U.S. election on behalf of the Russian government should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. There's no question about that. And I hope that the U.S. Senate Intelligence Committee and the House Intelligence Committee get to the very bottom of this, because at the end of the day, Donald Trump is the President of the United States. Russia had nothing to do with impacting the outcome of this election. Russia had nothing to do with Donald Trump winning in Michigan or Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or Ohio or Iowa or Florida or North Carolina. But if people broke the law, they should absolutely be held accountable,
right.
And I hope they are.
Right, and of course you're talking about the vote tallies. That was another important revelation that was made in that hearing yesterday, is that no vote counts were changed in a large list of states asked by Congressman Nunes. So no vote counts were changed. That is important, but I think the Russians, you know, they waged a disinformation, a propaganda campaign too. They were perhaps behind the WikiLeaks revelations of Hillary Clinton's and John Podesta's emails. But even Democratic Congressman Schiff said it's unknowable how much influence that had on the campaign. Corey, last question. This was another revelation that came out yesterday in the hearing, and I wanted to ask you specifically because your name was brought up, and that was Carter Page's trip to Moscow. Carter Page is, of course, he was an operative of the Trump campaign, but I believe he was unpaid. He was one of those people that I believe the word you used was he was on the periphery of the campaign. However, he was involved. His name has been involved. And Politico reports that you personally approved his trip to Moscow. Did you?
Liz, I've never met Carter Page in my life. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with Carter Page, and I could no more approve a trip for Carter Page than I could approve, where you're going to go on your honeymoon. So, if you don't work for me, and you tell me that you're going to go on vacation to the Bahamas, and I say, congratulations, enjoy your trip, that's neither, my acknowledgement that you can go or cannot go. You don't work for me. And Carter Page never worked for the campaign when I was the campaign manager. So I had nothing to approve because he never worked for the campaign. He was a person who I think his name was mentioned as an advisor for one period of time. There was one meeting which was held of that advisory committee of which Carter Page did not attend. I don't think I've ever spoken to Carter Page directly. I don't think I ever have communicated with Carter Page. I don't think I've ever met Carter Page. So I didn't approve or disapprove of anybody to do anything because the individual in question never worked for the campaign. So I didn't have the authorization to do that even if I wanted to, which I didn't.
Right, and hopefully that should clear it up. I mean, the media reports versus what we heard from the House Intelligence Committee yesterday, very conflicting information. Hard to get to the bottom of this. Corey, I appreciate you answering all these questions. It's always great to talk to you.